Hello and welcome to the first video of True Resolute. And before I start off with this topic, I would like to give you a disclaimer. So the topics which I'm going to be talking about are going to be very radical and tabooish for the everyday man. So you have to be completely open-minded in order to understand what I'm going to say or what exactly this is. So these topics are not self-made, so I did not make these topics on myself. This knowledge was being passed down by generations after generations. We, as the present day generation, just failed to implement them in our lives. And I'm also going to tell you the reasons why we actually failed to understand such questions in our lives. Now, the most important question, who am I, is the very core aspect of existence and reality. Now, before I jump into existence and reality, I'm going to ask you a small question. Have you ever genuinely asked yourself, who am I? And if you did ask yourself, who am I, what kind of answers did you come up with? Generally, you would have come up with, I am my name, I am my body, I am from so and so country. But if you go much, much deeper, you would say, I am a family, right? The family which we are talking about is with the inclusion of your parents, the people, your religion, your caste, and everything. You do everything in your life to protect this family, thinking that it is who you actually are. But you're in for a shock right now. This is not who you are, right? You're not your name, you're not your body, you're not your extended family, you're not even your closer family, you're not even your parents, you're not even your kids, you're not even your wife, you're not even your colleagues, you're not your job, you're not your religion, you're not a Christian, you're not a Hindu, you're not a Muslim. See, these are the things, these are the identities or the labels which you have identified yourself to, and you do everything in your life to protect these labels. You think this is what you belong to. But the truth is, the very fundamental truth is, you are something much, much deeper than all of this. How much deeper, you may ask? Now, take a small example. Now, what if I remove your name? What if I remove your body? What if I remove your clothes? So, Akhil, you're saying that I'm not my body, I'm not my mind, I'm not my body, I'm not my labels, but what exactly am I? That's a very genuine question, right? Whenever you get that question, that means you're on the right path. But what exactly are you? If I'm saying, hey, John Smith, your body is not yours, your name is not yours, your parents might have even named you Jack Smith instead of John Smith, you would actually believe that your name is Jack Smith, and you would totally forget the fact that you are John Smith. But even beyond names and bodies, if you kind of remove the further extended family identities, such as labels, religions, if you would say that I am not a person from the US, I'm not even a person from India, then you are going in the right direction. To answer this question, who am I, is to remove all the labels, identities, which you have spent all your time, all your life trying to acquire. You even kind of treat others, other people, or other living things with disrespect, with unlove, trying to protect who you really are, trying to protect your true labels and identities. But why are we doing that? This topic has to be explained in a very deep manner. It's going to be very controversial for you. So generally what I say to my audience before they kind of approach these topics is to be completely open-minded. I kind of take two examples. Suppose there is a glass A and there is a glass B. Glass A is filled with red water and glass B is filled with green water. Now, if I give you a task, fill the glass B with red water, what would you do? Would you kind of pour the green water on top of the red water? I don't think that's the right thing to do. You see, it's because it forms a mixed color. What you do first is you kind of empty glass B completely, and then you pour the contents of glass A into glass B. Then you kind of have glass B as the new glass A. Now, why did I take this example? Is because the colored water is like perspectives, right? So for example, Jack Smith, you have a completely different perspective of an elephant than me. Me, Akhil, I have a completely different perspective of an elephant. Suppose we both have a conversation of elephants. We are bound to have arguments because your view of reality is completely going to be different from my view of reality. In a sense, it is actually good. It makes both of us unique, but it's actually bad if we are actually trying to come to one point. Now you might ask, why should we come to one point? This coming to one point is called as love. Say for example, I give you an ice cream. I give you a chocolate ice cream, and you say this chocolate ice cream is my favorite. I like it more than vanilla. And I say, hey John, I think we both are on the same page with regards to this. Even I like chocolate ice cream. This moment of understanding is the first step towards love. I mean, it goes deeper and deeper. It in fact goes into infinite. This moments of understanding, this moment of contemplation, of trying to understand the world in a new light, of trying to understand, of trying to open yourself to the world. These are called as the moments of love. They are actually infinite such moments, and these are also going to be spoken much about in my upcoming videos because I have to dive very much deeper into this. So as I took the examples of class, I suggest you to be completely open. Be open, right? Don't try to bring your old ideas into such topics because you're just going to confuse yourself and you're not going to get anything out of this. So the first thing is be an empty glass, or take an example of a blank painting or a white paper, right? In this white paper, you can paint any kind of painting you want. The creation you can do on this white paper is actually infinite. Now, after you've opened yourself up completely, and now you're actually open to receiving new knowledge, right? New information. Say, for example, if you're a person who knew everything and anything about elephants, and I am just someone who's trying to tell you something new about elephants, and I'm like, hey, John, have you heard that there are pink elephants? You would be like, what the hell are you talking about? Pink elephants? Are you out of your mind? Now, what if there are actually pink elephants which John did not know of? So, you see why it's very important to be completely open when you're hearing such topics? Is because you kind of confuse your previous topics to this current topic which I'm talking about, and you kind of confuse these two and you're not going to reach at any point, right? There is actually an example of a dog in the middle of a road, right? It doesn't know which end to go. It doesn't know if it wants to go to the end A or end B. It will stay confused in the middle of the road and the truck would hit and the dog dies, right? Suppose if you want this dog to live, it has to choose a point. It has to choose A or to B. If you have to come to point A, you have to completely let go of your understanding of point B. That's the only way you can completely come to point A, right? You can completely come to new understandings or new perspectives. So the reason I told all of this is because it is very important that you keep a very open-minded regarding this topic. So now coming back to the question of who am I? Since we spoke about removing all the labels, identities, our extended family, anything which we have in our world, we start removing them one by one. And what comes after we remove one by one? Are we trying to go into a void, which is nothing? So now I'm trying to remove everything which is me. So this everything of me consists of everything which I have. Now when I say something so radical like remove everything that is you, you are going to immediately ask me, how is it possible, Akhil? I have spent my entire 30 years or 40 years building whatever I am today, and you come in with a video and you say remove everything you think that belongs to you. How is it actually possible? I'm not actually telling you to go out there and sell off your car, sell your houses, sell your clothes. I'm not actually telling that. So before you misunderstand me in this topic, I am telling you to disidentify yourselves from them. Just try to disidentify, right? A simple question like, what if my name is not John Smith? This John Smith was just a name that was given to me by my parents. Am I identified by this name? right? And you get the answer as no. And what if I was born with a body of a fish? So is this human body mine? You get the answer as no. So you keep going down this path till you keep removing your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings. So when it comes to thoughts, you say something like I am swimming or I am eating, right? Swimming and eating are two separate objectives, but before the swimming and eating there exists something called as I am. So this is what we are trying to understand, this I amness within us, this pure I amness which is devoid of all our labels and identities. By doing this, we kind of get to know our true nature. Now you might ask me, why should I know my true nature? I'm just an everyday person doing my own thing. I'm earning my money. I'm feeding my family. I'm not doing bad to anyone. But this is not enough for life. To truly understand who you are actually opening yourselves up to the infinite possibilities that life has to offer. Now, this not everyone is ready for. You need a lot of courage and resilience and open-mindedness to even be open to such a fact. Now, as you keep going down this path of removing all your labels and identities, you come to a point of pure nothingness or pure blankness. But hey, you still exist here. You see, that's the beauty of this, right? You have removed your names, your body, your extended family, and everything that belongs to you, all your pet animals, all your religions, all your castes, anything which you feel so proud of having today, you have removed by going down this path. And at some point, after 20 or 30 minutes, you're completely left with absolute nothingness. Now you might ask me, what is this absolute nothingness we are talking about? Does it have a quality? No, it doesn't have a quality. Can I see something in this nothingness? No, you cannot see anything in this nothingness. Can you hear something? You cannot hear anything in this nothingness. There is absolutely nothing. All your understandings and perspectives have gone now. Now, in Vedic terms, or in the terms of Sanatana Dharma, it is called as Maya, right? These identities or religions are called as Maya. So all this term which you are listening in your mind, or which you are listening in your family or in your society, this Maya is nothing but the identities or labels which we have assigned ourselves to. Now, what is beyond this Maya? That is what we are going to talk about today. Now, if you did all the homework which I just told in the past 5 to 10 minutes, now you're a completely open person and you're open to knowing who you actually are, right? So we are going to do a systematic removal of all the labels and identities in our upcoming slides. So I wish you good luck. Please try to stick with me till the end of the video, because if you kind of get bored in the beginning, you might have a semi-understanding. I'm more concerned about you having an improper understanding or a semi-understanding of the contents in this video than you not watching the video, because with this half knowledge you cannot go anywhere in this world. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Now close your eyes for a moment and feel the beating of your heart and just focus on the awareness of you. Now, beyond all the tides of emotions, the chaos of your thoughts, there is a silent core, a silent witness to all of this. All that this witness says is that it exists. It says something like, I exist. It doesn't say it loudly, but it just is there. It just says in its very own silence that I exist. Now, this sense of identity is not taught to us. It's not taught to us in our schools, in our colleges or offices. It is taught to us by ourselves. As soon as we reach this witness, we understand it. We know it by its very essence. So it is like a truth which is embedded in all living beings, no matter what you take. Take, for example, birds, fishes, animals, or even trees. Anything that is living has this I embedded into it. Or if you want to take an example, it's like a burning flame, which is deep within all of us. Or another example, if you take earth, The I would be the core of the earth. So now you might think that this I is just another label, but it is actually not a label. It is the very essence of what you do or how you live in everyday life, right? Whatever you say, think, or do, all happens within this I, within this consciousness, or within this awareness. This awareness is what that makes things meaningful. So take an example of I am swimming, right? So swimming is just another object, but when it is assigned to the word I am, it gives meaning to the object called as swimming. So now swimming happens within your awareness. Or take another example that I am studying today. So studying is just an object which happens in the world. It is just like a thought. So it has a beginning, it has a continuation, and it has an end. But as soon as it happens within your awareness, that is within your I amness, it has some meaning or some purpose to it. So, as I said previously, it is not your name, your thoughts, and emotions, because these are all fleeting. That means they have a beginning, they have a continuation, they have an end. But what happens to this I? This I remains eternally present. So, it is not an object, it is actually a subject. Think of it like this: there's a room within your house where no one goes, right? There are no objects in this room. There are no chairs, no sofas, no fans, no air conditioners, nothing. And none of the family members go into this room. They go into every other room, but not to this room. This room remains untouched eternally. I mean, beyond time. As soon as you build the house, you don't go into this room. As you're staying in the house, you don't go into this room. As you're selling this house, you don't go into this room. This room remains untouched. So this is another example of how you can kind of grasp the concept of I. I would say, apart from grasping the concept of I, if you would actually come in contact with this idea of I, you would get a better idea of it. It is untouched by time. It is independent of you when you're young, you when you're growing, or you when you're old. It is unshaken by circumstances. Even if you're sad, this I remains. Even if you're happy, this I remains. Even if you're jumping with joy, this I remains. Because it is the most or the unchanging aspect within you that remains eternally true. Or take an example of what I've said before. In everyday life, you keep using sentences like I am walking, I am talking to my friend. Now, when you're using these sentences, try to observe before you utter these sentences that there is this I which remains constant before each sentence. This is the I which we are talking about, and this self, it remains constant throughout your entire life. Any kind of ripples or waves in your life will not affect this I. So the body may grow tired, the mind may wander here and there, but this I always remains in the present moment. This I is not thinking about the past, it is not thinking about the future. It always remains grounded in the present reality. Or it's like a root of a tree where the leaves and the branches are all swinging here and there. They're always in the past or in the future, but the root is always grounded. So this is how you can try to understand the essence of I. Now look at everything that happens around you in the world. So for example, the sun rises and sets. People come in your life, they go out. You have many relationships. Your parents came in at some point. They are also going to go out at some other point. It is a very hard truth, but we have to all face it at some point. There is always something which is very constant beyond the seasons, beyond relationships, beyond your thoughts, beyond the nature. This I or self always remains constant. It was there when you were a child, it is there now as you're listening to this, it's going to be there after you die as well. So it's like an anchor in the storm. Now, this I is your very own consciousness, and its nature is eternal. So it is not bound by time and space. Now, what do I mean by it is not bound by time and space? So when you're doing an activity today, it is in so and so date at so and so time. But this I is beyond this date and time. Now take an example of the sun. So the sun remains constant as the clouds come in, the clouds go out, as the earth rotates, the sun always remains constant. So this is how the I always remained constant. It has witnessed the beginning of the earth, it is going to witness the fall of the world, and it is also going to witness any major or minor changes that are going to happen in this world. Now take a moment to reflect on your body and mind, which you have provided yourself. Anything can happen to this body and mind. For example, someone can say something bad about you or something happy about you, and your thoughts immediately change. When I'm praising you here and now, you immediately kind of feel very happy about it. Now, if I scold you, your thoughts immediately change to sadness or frustration. So, this I remains independent of these tools. Whatever happens to your body or your mind, this I remains untouched. Call it awareness, call it God, call it Krishna, call it Rama. All you need to recognize that it is very divine in nature and it is always in this present moment. So it guides you through your life, it sustains you wherever you go, and most of all, it is out there waiting for you to reach it, waiting for you to understand it, waiting for you to know that it is with you all your life, through all your ups and downs, through all the waves. It is not any other concept which you try to understand it with your mind. It is a thing which is very deep within you, and you need to kind of grasp it. And once you have done all this, you will realize that you are not separate from God or consciousness. This I or the self that remains within you is the very own God which is there in all the living beings in the world. So now you can understand the word Aham Brahmasya. What does it mean? Aham means the self. Brahmasya means everything. So I am the self, and one who knows the self knows all that exists in this world or any other worlds for that matter. So the picture which you see is of Sri Ramana Maharshi. He was one of the most influential people of my life. I kind of realized my own nature through his teachings. I'm going to make many videos about him in future, but for now I'm just going to explain a very small story of his life and how he came to the self-realization. Ramana Maharshi was just like any other boy. When he was 16, this fear of not knowing who he was so intense that, and while this happened, he immediately went to his room and he laid down and he imagined himself like he was dead. While he was doing that, he was constantly asking himself, who remained even after my body died? And during this process, he encountered something very profound, which is the self. The realization was so profound that he immediately left his home, his possessions, his family, his relatives, everything, and he dedicated his entire life to staying in the self. He immediately understood that this body, the possessions, the mind, all of it was very temporary in nature. So he spent the rest of his life just remaining in the self. And while he did that, he spent hours and hours just being blissful, just being happy and at peace. And also through deep meditation and introspection, he reached the ultimate reality, which is the self or the consciousness of oneself. Even in his silence, people could feel the happiness around him. People could feel the peace around him. And he went on to become one of the most influential people in this world. Great people from all across the world came to him to understand the self. Through his art of self-inquiry, he made even a common person, a layman who was very ignorant in his nature, he made him understand the very nature of his consciousness. So there are actually many temples which are just built for him in Tamil Nadu. And there are many books written about him and the art of self-inquiry. Furthermore, I'm going to make many such videos on him. But for now, this is just an example of how a person had transformed himself completely through self-realization. Now let us try to understand how the gross world is compared to the self. So gross world or material world is anything which changes with time. So it has a beginning, it has a continuation, and it has an end. So this applies to anything which you see with your eyes, which you hear with your ears, which you smell with your nose, and taste with your tongue. We come to the point, why do we have this body? So the reason we have this body is for the self within us, for it to interact with this material world. So the self has done some creation. This God within us, this consciousness has done some creation, and this creation has materialized over time. And to interact with this material world, you need a tool. So this body acts as a tool. The thing about the gross world or the material world is they age, they grow over time. The gross world consists of something which is very tangible, something which changes over time. You can take a simple example of a car. So the car is first created and it's used over time, and in the future it is dumped. So if you observe, anything in this gross world is subject to change. For example, our bodies, they decay over time. Our relationships, they kind of change. They're like waves in an ocean. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. And after a while, they come to an end. Even our bodies, they come to an end after a while. Even thoughts and emotions, they come and go. For example, you are happy at this moment, you are sad at another moment. All these, the body, the thoughts, and the emotions, they are called as the gross world. One most important characteristic of the gross world or the material world is that they are impermanent. They do not have any sort of permanence. Now, if you take comparison to the self, on the other hand, the self remains absolutely untouched, constant, and eternal. And the self is not affected by time, whereas the gross world, it is affected by time. Time takes anything into its cusp, and death occurs only in time. So now you can understand how people die. You understand how plants, animals, and other things as well die. And even the emotions, they come in and they go out. So they are also subject to death. So all the death happens in time and space. So the self, which is beyond time and space, has no death. So now you can understand why it is called as eternal. The only thing is because it is not subject to any change. It is absolutely constant. Think of it like an observer, or if you are going to a movie and you sit and watch the movie and everything in the screen changes, but you as an audience, you do not change. So the self is the observer or the audience, and anything which changes on the screen is like the gross world or the material world. And again, as I said previously before, I am a child, I am an adult right now, and I'm going to grow old. And anything which comes after this I, it either changes or it grows old or it dies. So this is the law of impermanence, which is subject to all the material world. Why do we have this body? That's a very important thing which we have to question ourselves. So the reason the body exists is for the self to interact with this material world. For example, if you want to eat, you have a spoon and a fork. But what if you want to interact with this entire gross world? So this body acts as a tool for it to interact with the world. And it interacts with the world using its five senses. So one is eyes, ears, nose, which is smelling, tasting, and touching. So it's like a tool or a device which helps us to interact with the world so that we can come in contact with the world and try to understand its nature and try to influence the nature. So the self has the body to influence the nature or to understand the nature. You can also say the self has the body to enjoy the nature. So you as an observer, you as an awareness, you as an eternal witness, you are trying to observe the world. You are trying to witness the world, but you are not attached to the world. See, you need to bring this separation between you and the world in order to understand the concept of self within you and to understand the concept of the cross world. Imagine a room where you cannot see anything, it's completely dark, and as soon as you switch on the light, you're able to witness everything in this room. So the self also acts as a light to witness everything in the world. Consciousness is the light which we are talking about. So in order to see anything, in order to hear anything, in order to smell anything, in order to taste anything, you need consciousness as the source of light, which is you. You are the source of light. So everything that is happening in this world is happening within you because you are the source of the light. So imagine the sun on a very sunny day. Everything in this world is visible. So just as you are the sun, anything happens in your consciousness. So understanding the gross world helps us to shift our perspective by not being attached to the gross world and trying to anchor ourselves in the consciousness. This helps us in many ways. This helps us in understanding the entire world. This helps us in understanding where we are in our life, in the universe as a whole. So without this consciousness as the light, none of the gross world can be experienced. Or take a small example. Have you ever seen someone say, I do not know this? So you would have heard someone say, I do not know this. Even their I do not know this exists within their consciousness. Or when they say, I know this, this also exists within their consciousness. So it's like anything and everything that happens exists in your consciousness or in your awareness. So now a lot of people say that consciousness is a fact of all the billions of neurons in our brain, but that is not the case. When you kind of encounter such statements, you need to ask yourself, who is observing this billions of neurons, or who knows these billions of neurons? It is once again yourself or the consciousness. So consciousness as a fundamental reality is completely different from your body or anything which you identify through your body. So the simple way of trying to understand this is gross world or material world is subject to change, and the self is not subject to change. The self remains absolutely constant beyond time and space. So a simple practice of trying to understand, of trying to separate yourself from the gross world is when you constantly keep asking yourself throughout the day, who am I who is doing the activity, right? Say, for example, you're eating today. Who is that who is eating? And also, you immediately try to answer it with your name, but since you understood from the previous sessions that you are not your name, you are not your body, then who is actually doing the eating? Or if I'm talking to another person, who is actually trying to talk to this other person? When you do these observations completely throughout the day, you come to a conclusion that the self is the one who is doing all the activity. It's just using the body as a tool, the mind as a tool, but the self is the one who is doing the activity. So the gross world is like a shadow of the self. The gross world remains, but it does not remain for long. The self always remains. So the key thing which we have noticed before was how this I is absolutely nothing. But as soon as you try to attach anything, even a very small identification to it, it becomes something. You see, imagine you're going to a beach and you find the clay, it's very wet, the sand is very wet, and you can try to mold this clay into a castle, into whatever you want. So that's exactly how the ego works. Awareness, in its own sense, it's just clay. But as soon as you try to build something out of it, it becomes something. So the clay has become a castle. Similarly, this awareness becomes something. That's actually a very nice example if you want to get your mind around it. And the problem with ego is this castle, as soon as a new wave comes, the castle gets destroyed. That's what happens to the ego or the illusion of I. As soon as we try to identify it with something else, it gets destroyed at some point. For example, when was the last time you got into a relationship? Before the relationship, you were totally fine. God forbid you got into a relationship and now you actually liked being with this girl or a guy. And at some point, you started to identify your life with them. I am in a relationship with so and so person. You see, you have given away your power by doing this. You have given away the definition of yourself, or you started to define yourself with this person now. So this forms another castle, sand castle, you see. So as soon as the relationship breaks, you're completely devastated. The reason I took this example is because it is very relatable to most of us. But anything which you try to identify with yourself, even a simple thing like I belong from so and so country, it completely defines who you are. I am a white person, I am a black person, I am an Indian. You see, there are n number of examples. You can go inside this as deep as you want. The more you start identifying with these things, it forms a complex mesh of multiple egos trying to have war over you. They're trying to have control over you. And as you're trying to identify yourself with these egos, you are giving them control. It's like you are being sucked out. The life inside you is being completely sucked out by all these identities which you have. The most important reason I started True Resolute was to help people get rid of their egos or help them remember their true nature. In this way, they can be better people and they can be more happier, more blissful, more joyous. I have seen tremendous amount of change in my life when I started doing some practices. As soon as you start disidentifying yourself from your labels or all the small egos, it's like you're clearing your mirror, and then you can see a completely new reflection of yourself, which is yourself or the awareness. Jack has got a very good body, as you can see, and he's so proud of his body, and he's proud of many other things, and his car is even better than mine. All these egos or identities which Jack has assigned himself, say for example, I am happy, I am a family man, I wear nice clothes, although he doesn't have any clothes. He has a nice house, he has a great car. All these identities which Jake has. Oh, it's supposed to be Jake. I apologize. So all those egos or identities which Jake has assigned himself, they are going to go away at some point. His house is going to be demolished at some point. So there's absolutely no reason for him to be proud about that. Or if he doesn't pay his car loans on time, they're going to take it away. And he has nothing to be proud of. I'm not telling people to give away their house, give away their car. I'm just telling you to disidentify yourself. You see, the only thing you need to identify yourself is with yourself, with your consciousness, with your I. And after some time, you should even let go of this identification, because now, as soon as you try to identify with this I, it becomes something. You see? So the simple exercise is, as soon as you become something, you have to constantly remind yourself that I am not this thing. For example, I have to constantly remind myself that I am not true resolute and I'm only attached to it. So that's a great example of Jake. So there are many examples in how you can try to understand the concept of ego. So the ego is like you're wearing a mask all this while you're in a show. You think this is who you are, the person in the mask, but it's not who you truly are, you see. The mask is just the ego or the identification you are giving yourself at that point. Or it's like a bubble which is floating in the air. The bubble thinks it has its own identity. You see, the bubble thinks all the air inside is me. But as soon as it bursts, or as soon as its ego dissolves, it becomes everything else. It becomes completely infinite. It becomes the universe. That's one way you can try to understand or identify the ego. Or you can even take an example of a wave in the ocean. The ego is like a small wave. It thinks it's separate and unique. It might even compare itself with other waves. You see, maybe I'm taller. Maybe I have more water in me. I come with more force. So if you take a tsunami, for example, a tsunami has the largest ego among all the waves. Yeah, that's a pretty good example. But you see, the ocean is completely infinite. The waves or the tsunami is just a part of the ocean. The ocean is ever present with the wave. So you can say something like the wave is just a manifestation of the infinite ocean. The ocean here represents the universe or yourself or your consciousness, you see. As you start doing the exercise, I am not this, I am not that, you come to a point where you realize that you are absolutely nothing. Even this I, which you thought was true before, becomes false, you see. Because you are greater than all the identities. You are greater than all the labels which you have ever assigned yourself or which you will ever keep assigning yourself in the future or in the past. As you keep doing this practice, you will notice something very profound. You will start to become more empty. It's like a pot which is filled with trash. It's being emptied and being cleaned. You will feel a lot lighter, and also you will try to see that it's like cleaning your room. So you are going to be more happy about yourself, that you have done some work on yourself. To understand the true self, we are going to use this example. So imagine you are standing in a dark room for all your life. At first it was very uncomfortable, and then you get used to it, and after some time you believe that you do not have any choice, that you can never make it out of this room. But one day a ray of light, it seeps through a crack in the wall. At first this light seems very blinding, it seems very unfamiliar, but as you try to adjust to this light, you realize something, that this light was you all this while. All you needed to do was just open your eyes to this light, and all the darkness fades away. The self or the consciousness, it doesn't have a form. So everything is happening within your consciousness. Your consciousness is imagining yourself to be a human. So think of it like this. Everything which you ever are, which you ever have been in your life, has always been a consequence of your imagination, isn't it? So, for example, if you bought a house which you ever dreamed of, this house came into your life after you started imagining it multiple times in your head. Only then the desire springed, and then you wanted to buy a house. So before consciousness tries to imagine anything, it is absolutely nothing. And as soon as a desire arises, that means the consciousness wants to create something. It desires to create something out of this absolute nothingness. And as soon as this creation happens, it tries to manifest it into the void. So that's how creation happens, you see. So Brahma is the beginning of creation, is the beginning of a desire. And Vishnu is to keep the desire alive, is to try to manifest it in the world, is the manifestation itself. Brahma is the beginning of the creation, Vishnu is the manifestation at its completeness, and Shiva is the end of the manifestation. So you see, it's a complete cycle. Any creation has a beginning, it has a continuation at the end. So that's how in Sanatana Dharma the creation was explained. And once again, as you lose the illusion of I, you start feeling like you are escaping from a prison. So the thing is, you have put yourself into this prison, and now you are trying to escape it from yourself. All the punishments or all the prison guards here are your desires, all your comparisons, and all your doubts, fears. All these are the things which have imprisoned you all your life. Now, as you reach closer to the self, you're breaking free from all these imprisonments. It feels like you're reaching home. It feels like all this while you were in a very bad movie, and as soon as the movie ends, it's like you're going home. It was within you all this time, you see. It was with you as you were young. It is with you right now as we are talking. You need to understand that it is the self which is communicating to you. I am just an external expression trying to communicate whatever is within your mind. It's like you have found the answer which you were looking all your life. Your life becomes brighter all of a sudden. So the boundaries between you and others, it starts to dissolve. The boundaries between you and others starts to dissolve. You see the other person just as yourself. You try to become more compassionate. You try to show more love. As soon as someone makes a mistake, before getting angry, you try to think twice. That's what happens when you get closer to the self. You become a lot more magnetic. I'm going to make a separate video about personal magnetism, but magnetism is a feature which attracts others to you. It's as simple as that. You're getting closer to your nature. You start to see moments of complete, unending peace. You just sit there all by yourself. While rest of your friends are partying, they're going out, they're putting all the Instagram reels. You just sit by yourself, completely blissed out. That's how it feels. So you start loving people without expecting anything from them. It's not that give or take love. It literally feels like your heart has expanded and you feel a lot more happy and confident within yourself. The previous illusion or the previous I which you have assigned yourself or the previous concept of self now feels like a very distant memory. It's not there anymore. You are literally dead to the previous person. It is like you rise like a phoenix out of the ashes. That's how it feels like. It's like you have resurrected from the dead. Resurrection means coming alive from the dead. It is not an external event that happens. Resurrection happens within, right? It's happening all the time. You are letting go of your old beliefs. You're letting go of your old ideas, your old doubts and fears to become the new man. So you're being born as a new man. That's how resurrection happens. So you're not the wave or you're not the bubble anymore. You're the absolute universe. You're the ocean. All you need to do is burst your bubble. All you need to do is ask yourself what is beyond the wave and how big is the ocean. As the question starts within you, you will start to understand everything in the world. You will start to understand how you are connected to everything in the world. So your thoughts do not matter to you anymore because now you understand that your thoughts are just your made up stories which keep changing over time. And also you start to become more humble. You're going to let go of your narcissistic attitudes, and features. You don't want people to give you a lot of attention. You don't want people to validate you. That's how it feels like when you start to realize yourself. That's what many people are suffering now with. As soon as they do something, even if they go to a new restaurant, they want to post it on Instagram to get validation from others. You see, they think that this is the validation that makes them who they are. So people are always dependent on someone else's validation. You are posting out there in Instagram so that your friends can compare their lives with you. And say, for example, if they are feeling better than you, they are going to feel happy about it. If they are feeling worse than you, they're going to feel sad about it. And you are wreaking happiness out of their sadness. You see, you're going to let go of all these narcissistic attitudes. You believe there's a lot more to life than just Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or any app for that matter. You start doing your duties without getting attached to the result. Because now you do not care about the result. So you start doing duties for the sake of doing the duty. Because you start to understand that the result is not in your hand. Apart from inner peace and clarity, you start to understand things from a very core perspective. You start to see things as they truly are. You are not dependent on someone else's opinions. So you start to see that any good, bad, or evil in this world, it's all a manifestation of a higher purpose. You start to understand the divine purpose behind things. So all the fears and insecurities that used to dominate you before, they start dissolving. You become bigger than them. You start developing a very strong faith and a purpose to life. And this immediately makes your life very beautiful. It's like you have taken complete control over your life. You start surrendering everything to this higher purpose. And in this purpose, you find freedom. You find true freedom. It's not financial freedom. It's not emotional freedom. It's complete freedom from all the attachments which you ever had. We are not escaping the life. You see, we are trying to embrace the life to its fullest potential. We are not escaping our responsibilities. So please do not misunderstand me in this context. So we are trying to get hold of our responsibilities without being attached to the outcome. And we start doing everything in the state of mind that I don't care how it happens. I don't care what happens, but I am just going to do my responsibility. That's how we are going to behave. And that will give you intense amount of freedom and liberation. You are going to burst with moments of joy because now nothing has control over you. You also try to see beauty within the very small things in your life. For example, a child's laughter, the rustle of leaves, the wind blowing at you. You start to enjoy these small things. You take long walks in the park and also you feel the warmth of the sun on your face. So each and every moment feels like a sacred thing because you see, now you are not catering to the mind's demands. You do not care what your friends think about you. All the happiness which you ever looked outside is now found within. You see, you begin to find happiness in the right direction. You start to look within for the happiness. So this happiness you do not get even if you spend $1 million. I can guarantee you that. So generally the happiness which we find externally is dependent on money. It's like a give or take love. So for example, you give something and they give you something back. But the happiness we find here is never ending. You see, the love here is eternal. The peace here is eternal. You're always fully present here in the now. So you're not regretting over your past. You're not anxious about your future. You're totally in the now. And with this intense pleasure, there comes a deep gratitude you have for life. So you start to thank life about the small things it has done to you and also the big things that are going to happen in your life. So the search which you are doing in your life to be content, to be fulfilled, to be happy, now it feels like you do not have to do that anymore. It feels very unnecessary. You're not running after something anymore. You're complete exactly as you are. You begin to understand this more and more as you try to stay in the self. You start to trust things completely, knowing that it will happen eventually, as you're just alive in the present moment. So you start feeling higher vibrational feelings such as love, compassion, gratitude. You're not angry anymore. You do not regret over your past. You're not sad all the time. You're not frustrated. People start to notice something different about you. They start to see that something has changed within you. So, does this mean that you do not have problems anymore in your life? No, absolutely not. So, you will still get your bundle of happiness and sorrows, but you start to look at them in a very different perspective from now. Now, the pain of the sorrow, it no longer defines you, the pleasure no longer controls you. So, there's a term in Sanskrit called as sthita prajna. It means one who is stationed in the self, one who is not shaken by sorrows, happiness, desires, anger, lust, greed. He is not shaken by anything. So he is called as sthita prajna, one who is situated in the self. So after a while, when you keep doing this practice, you realize something very profound. You start to realize that you never had to become the self. It was always your true nature. Happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, compassion, joy. It was who you actually were. You just were covering all this with external feelings, emotions, with negative feelings. You are just blinding yourself to be someone else. You are conditioning your true nature to become something who you are not. You think that everything which you ever wanted was found outside, but it was found deep within yourself. You live with a lot of clarity and you're not afraid anymore. So courage is one of the biggest thing that comes with realizing yourself. That doesn't mean with this courage you will do anything you want, because now you have a lot of clarity and sense into yourself. It's like you're peeling away layers of illusion. You will know that deep in your heart you're not separate, you're not small, but you're actually connected to everything and you're infinite. So this is the gift of realizing the self. The gift of realizing the self is life itself. You start to embrace life in its fullest potential. You need to see yourself as the freedom which you have been looking all your life. So in time you will understand that this freedom was found within you and it was never an external circumstance. So we are going to have a small 5-minute guided meditation after this to stay in the self. So it's very simple. You start to observe the thoughts. So imagine that clouds are passing by and you need to observe the thoughts just like the clouds. Whatever thought that comes in your mind, just let it pass by. Do not define it as big, small, good, bad, nothing like that. Just let these thoughts pass by. And you as the self, you will remain as the sky. So find a chair somewhere, or you can even sit in a cross-legged position. But the most important thing here is you need to sit straight. Because as soon as you find some support to your back, your mind drowses off to sleep. So you need to sit straight. You can start doing it for 5 to 10 minutes a day. Then you can increase the interval as you become better at it. But it has to be a very consistent and persistent practice. That's the only way you will start to see results in your life. So let's start with the meditation. Welcome to today's meditation session. This meditation session will be on the self. So take a chair or sit in any cross-legged position, but make sure to sit straight. And while you do that, take a deep breath in and slowly exhale. Now we are going to do this 3 times. Take a deep breath in and slowly exhale. And now start breathing normally. Do not force your breath and start to observe thoughts like you observe the passing clouds. Do not attach to any thought, no matter how small you think it is, how big you think it is. Just let them go. You are but a silent witness. As soon as a thought arises, ask the question. What is the source of this thought? And what is the source of this thought? Who is asking the question? You will slowly answer yourself, I am. You need to dwell in this I amness. I am not my body. I am not my mind. I am absolutely nothing. I am not my fears. I am not my doubts. I am not my insecurities. I am absolutely nothing. Now we are going to end our video with an affirmation. I am the silent witness of all thoughts, emotions, and actions. My true essence is unchanging, peaceful, and complete. With every breath, I return to the stillness of my true self. Thank you.